So let's go ahead and get started. I'm here to talk to you today about QuizTime and Camel. So my name is Kim Garvey. I work at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. I work in the Center for Advanced Mobile Healthcare Learning, which is a newer unit. And what we do is we work with QuizTime as one of our tools, which is a novel approach to doing continuing education. We also do other educational technologies, but today I'm going to talk to you specifically about QuizTime. And of course, now it's not advancing.
The wonders of technology. There we go.
There we go. So what is QuizTime now that it's QuizTime? It's basically a web-based app that gives you a daily question to your mobile phone or computer. There are other quizzing apps out there. That's not like we have a copyright on quizzing. We're not the only ones that have developed something like this. We've just done it sort of using the central learner in mind, specifically a continuing education learner. So it's a combination of some technology that we stood up and some educational expertise, which we have, and some content expertise, which we have coming together. So with our QuizTime platform, you kind of get more than just the technology, you get those other bits as well. So this is what a typical QuizTime question will look like. In this case, it's a conquering COVID quiz question. So either on your phone through a text message link or through a link that gets sent to your email, you click on it and this is the interface you would see and you get a question that looks like this. It's presented to you as a mini case study. So quizzing isn't about getting things right. It isn't about answering a bunch of questions after you've taken some type of educational treatment. It's really to sort of quiz you where you are, where you're at. It's very much a workplace learning tool. Most of us struggle with time management. This is a way to get a little bit of education in every day that isn't too daunting or doesn't require, to read material and some of those things you don't have time to do. It just basically asks you a question and you have the opportunity to answer it right where you are. So a 45-year-old man presents type of situation. And then when you go to click to answer, you're given a selection of just, which one. Is it cardiovascular, chronic lung? And you go ahead and you select the answer. If you're correct, it lets you know. And when you're correct or incorrect, it gives you an explanation. So the rationale will present to you in green. If it's correct, it will present to you in red if it isn't correct. And you always need to acknowledge the explanation before you close. And the reason is we feel very strongly that it's interacting with the rationale more than anything that sort of gets the learning happening. So we're more concerned with the fact that you've read the rationale for good or bad, for correct or incorrect, and acknowledge that you've done so. In addition to the rationale, we provide you an implication for practice. So it's very concise as to what it is this should be helping you understand in terms of any practice behaviors you might need to change or tweak. And of course, we provide references. Some have links because they're web-based or they have a document object identifier, and some are just references that you would need to look up. We have the ability for you to provide feedback on each question. We have the ability, if you so desire, for you to see where others are at with answering the question. So this snapshot could give you on a daily basis, out of everybody that's answered this question, how many folks got it right? How many folks got it right on the second time? It's just a little kind of piece of gaming so you can kind of see where you're at versus the rest of the people that are taking the quiz, especially if it's a question that you didn't get right. People like to check to see if they were the only ones or that type of thing. So the QuizTime learning strategy kind of rests in between two, it's in its own unique space, so to say. So the theory behind it is definitely a micro-learning type of methodology where we're not trying to fire hose curriculum. We're trying to take very small consumable chunks and you learn at that pace. It's a test enhanced type of learning tool. In other words, you're testing your knowledge where you're at as opposed to testing your knowledge after you've sat in some course or an extended session. It's delivered with e-learning, obviously, and mobile learning. So the method of delivery is modern, and that is kind of where QuizTime rests as a tool. In terms of test enhanced learning, But what does that mean? It's the retrieval and the feedback and the repetition and the spacing. So our research indicates that getting a question once a day while you're working kind of works best for our learner population. Could be different for different learner populations. But the point of test enhanced learning is not to get the questions correct. It's to help you with that retrieval and repetition and feedback, the whole interaction process. Excuse me. We obviously test enhanced learning isn't a theory that we came up with. It exists out there. There's lots of literature around it, but specifically this idea that the retrieval process must be considered when analyzing the achievement of learning, because it's the way you incorporate new educational materials. Micro learning, what is it? In case you don't know, it's just the opposite of macro learning. It really is very specific, smaller pieces or chunks of knowledge that link to a framework of objectives or a concept map. It's been used a lot in workforce and human resource type training. It's starting to become more prevalent in healthcare. And the idea of social micro learning like Twitter, wikis and chat boards, Wikipedia, that's been out there for a while. But the way we teach in terms of education, micro learning is still fairly new. So how do you create a course in QuizTime? What's it all about? Basically, what we do is we come up with a framework of, what is it you want to see change and what practices do you want to change and what type of learning objectives would that tie to? This is how we build questions. It's not like we just sort of randomly create questions. There's a science behind it. So in this case, the measure here is an aggregate and individual clinical performance, and the measure would be the learning analytics. But this is sort of, we would like to see fewer hospital admissions. And these are the specific practice changes that we would like to incur. And these would be the learning objectives around it. And from that, we create questions. So when you create a QuizTime course, there's a learning objective part. There's the actual item writing. So we often reach out to our subject matter experts and to do item writing for us. Most do it gratis for an educator credit because it is like writing. Most of our courses that we offer through QuizTime have some continuing education credit available for them, not all. Of course, we do some editing and formatting. We load it into the quiz. And most importantly, we communicate around it. So we can set up the best quiz in the world, but if our partner in the quiz, whoever's running it, doesn't help us communicate out to potential learners, then obviously, it's all about getting the word out. So that kind of is a 6-step process really to get from an ideation to distribution in terms of creating a QuizTime course. How it functions, people get one question each weekday, not on weekends, just during the week. Our question quizzes range usually between 10 and 20, and the individual can set the time of day they want to receive the question between 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. And they can also pick the mode of delivery, whether it's email or text-based. So that's kind of how the questions actually function in the real world. Just a little bit more about how the questions behave. Each of our questions can remain open for 24 to 48 hours. So what does that mean? It means that if you open a question and you're like, gosh, I don't really know the answer to that, I need to think about that a little bit, you have up to 48 hours, depending on the setting that we choose, 24 to 48 hours to actually answer the question before it expires. Once you answer the question, and if you answer it incorrectly, the question will automatically give you a chance to take it again. So there's 2 attempts for every question. Unopened items can be sent as a bundle at the end of the quiz. So oftentimes we have folks that want to take these questions Monday through Friday. On Tuesday and Wednesday, they end up in clinic and they weren't able to get to those questions. So what happens? Do we just scrap the whole exercise? No. What we do is any questions that were never opened will be sent at the end of the quiz so people can take them in a bundle as sort of like a last chance. CME credits are generally awarded, CME, CNE, and CE credits, depending on what learner type. We generally award 80% for all engagement of quiz items. So basically on a 20-question quiz, If you interact with 16 of those questions, you open them and you try to answer it correctly or incorrectly, you'd be able to get credit.